A Florida State University program in interdisciplinary computing production.
That's semantics. And there's a lot of levels at which the semantics lie. For one thing, they lie in your information architecture, how you develop your hierarchy of pages and how you categorize things in the words you use there. They rely on the names you give your files. So sometimes it's easy for us to call something, PICSUM2011. That means something to me. My organization is called PIC, and I'm teaching in summer 2011, so that would mean something to me, but anybody else would be dumbfounded by that. That's just code. So spelling things out, even in file names and folder names on the server, is important as well. As we start getting into arranging the contents of our pages into divisions, it's important that we use words to label the divisions of our page that are logical and understandable to anybody that looks at it. So here we have a page that's a very common type of a layout with a header and a footer, a sidebar of content. The navigation bar lies within the header. You guys are just learning this week, so it's timely stuff. So this is how you would lay out the page. And it's one of the most difficult things about page layout CSS is here you see things and they often lie left and right of each other. All right, but when you code them, it's all going to be from top to bottom. You have to, you have to spell out the divisions from top to bottom. And that's a tough transition to make, or translation to make. So you have the body of your HTML, and we're skipping the head and the title and all that stuff. In the body, you have a division that is the header, and you can see where it ends. And inside that header is the nav bar. All right? And below that is the sidebar, and below that is the content, and below that is the footer. Now the confusing thing is the sidebar is next to the content. The content isn't below the sidebar, but what pushes this over to the side of the content is you use that float command. So you say float left, and that means push this over to the left, and anything that follows in the code, push it around over to the right of that element. You don't see that in the, this layout. You see that when you look at the CSS. So that takes a little bit of getting used to. But again, if we're talking about semantics here, these are fairly understandable words. Nav, that might be questionable to somebody who doesn't know what they're doing, but it's fairly common in CSS to use the word nav for navigation, so it's understood in the industry. So a lot of this we've learned already. You know that a web page is a collection of files, right? We don't have to get into that. The only thing I would change here is, they're not talking about organization, but I would definitely put my images in an image folder. But they're just kind of illustrating the fact that there's lots of different files that make up a web page. Now, as we name our files and folders, we can do something like this: whatever.edu/deps1/progs2/org004/bio, but that doesn't have a whole lot of meaning. If we instead name those things department/biology/ornithology/field ornithology -bio, then we start getting a feel for what this is. And once you look, you just look at the path of that file, where it lies in this hierarchy, you can almost see or guess how that will be accessed through a web page. You probably have a tab up there called departments, maybe. Or maybe the whole page is departments and you have a tab for biology. You click biology and it lists all the different areas of biology, and you click ornithology and you'll find this file there. And this kind of illustrates that point. So here you have a website that has sharks, fish, mammals, seabirds, about, and contact us. Those are all different folders with files in them. Chances are those are all going to be different tabs in a menu system. And chances are, if these are drop downs or have multiple pages within them, they would be files within these folders. Okay, if I beat that into the ground, beat you senseless with his idea. So the hierarchy on the server should mirror what happens in your navigation pane. And what's nice about being organized is if later you decide that we want to also add a section for jellyfish, you don't have to touch your existing hierarchy. All you have to do is add another folder, and now you have jellyfish, and add another tab. You don't have to totally reorganize the whole site around that. That's the kind of thing that you never really learn until you find yourself in that situation saying, oh no, I got to add something, now it doesn't work. Now there are tricks, and I don't want to tell you too much about this now. I used to teach this trick in a course early on in the semester, and it just led to a lot of confusion. But the idea is, what I usually do is I tell you about this at the end of the semester. Otherwise, students are going to be tempted to do it, and I'm just going to have a line of students outside my office all day. But as you get into designing multi-page sites, you'll find that, well, hey, every one of these pages has the same header, or every one of these pages has the same footer and sidebar, the same menus. Why do I have to type it over and over again for every HTML page, right? And what's worse is then you say, oh no, I want to change the name of the site from field biology to ornithology or something. Now you got to go through all of your 6 pages and manually edit the title in the title bar to something new. That's insane, right? So, and believe me, you get to know this, and you think, okay, well, I could do this for a 6-page site. It's not a big deal. But then the site grows, and you got 20 pages, and you want to change, and then you want to add something to the sidebar menu, and you got to go through and edit on every single page over and over again. So it makes sense that you should be able to just put the header or common elements of a page in a file all itself. Say this is header.html. And then in every one of your pages in the site, you just say, in this location, read in header.html. Just put it here. And that's all you do. It's one line of code. And it depends on what language you're using. But in PHP, it's called include. So you say include, and quotation marks, parentheses, header.html. And that's it. Well, you have to rename all your files from .html files to .php files. It changes, and it gets very complicated because you won't be able to preview it on your computer. You have to put it up on the web to preview it. So it gets a little complicated. But in essence, what you're doing is very simple. And then when you want to change the name of your site, all you have to do is go to header.html, make one change, and then every one of these pages is changed as well. I can actually show you this in action, come to think of it. All right, this is the PIC website. Again, my program is PIC, and I shamelessly flaunt it here. So we've got the home page, courses, people. Notice how the top of the screen doesn't change at all. How many websites do you know that do this? Everyone, And the same thing on the bottom. This bottom footer doesn't change on any of these sites. This menu changes, though, doesn't it? What changes about the menu? Yeah, which one's highlighted. So I can't do a global deal on that. But if you look on the pages themselves, here are the pages. Notice they're all called PHP because as I go to, let's do index. And hopefully Michelle's told you this because I've neglected to tell you this. Index is always the name of the home page on any website. All right, and it could be index.html, index.php, whatever you have. That's when you just go to a folder, when you just go to pic.fsu.edu and don't specify a file, the browser automatically looks for something called index and displays it. It makes it nice because then now you can use your domain name for your website without putting /something.html. So if we look at index.php here, this is Dreamweaver. It allows you to actually look at the page. It also allows you to look at the code of the page. What do we have right at the top? First I have includes.php. then I have include header.php. So what's includes.php? I don't even remember. We can look in this file. Oh, a whole bunch of JavaScript and CSS files that are used for this site. I didn't want to have this mess in the header of every one of my pages. I wanted my pages to look nice and neat and just have the content. So I just have this in a separate file. Notice this doesn't have the HTML tag or the title tag or anything else. It just has the code for the header. Now if I look in header.php, this again doesn't have HTML tag, it doesn't have title or body or anything like that. It just has the code, and it has the code for the header. That's it. All the way down to the department image that's there for the background, and it closes. So that's everything above that tabbed index. And so when I go back to index.php, when I say include header.php right here, when the server gets a request for this index.php, it automatically goes to that header.php and just takes the code and inserts it right there where that statement is, automatically when it's delivered. And let me show you this, because this is index.php. This is the file I'm accessing here. Notice this has the include statements here. When I look at the code here, what do I get? The whole thing. There's all that ugly header stuff I pulled out in the include. Here is the header stuff. It's automatically inserted. And way down here is finally the menu. So all it does, that's why it's called a server-side include. PHP is a server-side language. When I called index.php, it grabbed index.php and read those include statements and just took the code out of those files and put it in that, and then send it to the browser to display. So we're actually seeing the contents of 3 different files here sent to us, put together for us, actually 4, because there's a footer.include as well down here, include footer.php. Isn't that a great convenience? So just to let you know, there is salvation from having to duplicate. Anything you do over and over again, there's a way around it to just do it once. It's trying to decide what you can duplicate and what you need to specify individually for each page. That can be a little tricky. So that is the deal with include tricks. All right, you're learning about CSS, and there was a page in the online tutorial, a little website I sent you to learn CSS. There was a web page that explained this, but I think this is one of those things where you really need somebody to talk it through with you. Why they call it cascading. Anybody know why they call it cascading? Anybody want to take a stab at it? Brave individuals. Just fixing your hair, aren't you? Yes?
Because they're stacked.
Because they're stacked. That's right. There's precedence. There's certain CSS that you can put in your code that applies to everything that you include that CSS, but there's ways to override that with other CSS that you prefer for a particular instance. All right? So in general, this is the most dominant statement you can do is an inline CSS code. So in your HTML file, you say font type is this for this line of text. That will override anything you put in your style sheet. Otherwise, if you don't specify something in line, the styles will cascade down from your style sheet into the code. All right? Another way to do it is put some styles in the head of your web page. If you put a style in the header of your web page, it will override any style in a previous CSS page. All right? Or you can then do your external CSS file. That will cascade. And finally, if you don't specify any styles, the browser will specify what your styles are.
For more information about FSU's program in interdisciplinary computing, visit www.pic.fsu.edu.